Hello and welcome back to the Human First CEO series on LinkedIn Live. My name is Nick Maida and I'm the CEO of Gainsight. Happy 2021. This is our first interview for 2021 and I'm super excited to bring my friend to the stage, Andy Mcmillan, CEO of UserTesting. Welcome, Andy.
Hey, Nick. It's going to be fun to be here.
Awesome. It should be a really great conversation. We were just catching up beforehand with a lot of similarities in terms of how we try to lead our companies and lead with culture and things like that. But Andy, it's 2021. We're almost at the end, maybe, hopefully, of this whole COVID thing with the vaccine coming up. So what's the first thing you're going to do? Once enough people around you have been vaccinated.
Maybe it's the easy answer, but I'm dying to travel, both for fun, but also to see family. A lot of my family's back in the Midwest, so it's been a long time since we've just seen people we love. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's awesome. I'm sure those flights are going to be pretty booked. Honestly, once it's going to be weird. It's all of a sudden we'll just have to all go at the same time. So those Courtyard by Marriott's and stuff are going to be totally full wherever.
Yes.
We're at. So
yes.
Awesome. Well, here's to that day. Till then, we get to do video. So excited to have a little video chat with you about what we talk about with human first leadership. This idea that more and more CEOs, more and more leaders are realizing that at the end of the day, it's just human beings. Human beings are customers. Human beings in our team. Human beings are community, and we really got to kind of think of the human side, particularly as we go through challenges like 2020. So I've seen you in operation. I was very fortunate to be invited as a guest to one of your all hands. You run a very human, very authentic company. And I think my guess is that's been true in the past. You were an executive at Salesforce, you were at Oracle, you were CEO of Acton. And so you've run companies, both of us have done this for a while, right? So I'd love to hear a little bit about, kind of what the user testing culture was like before you joined, because it's a great company that's been around even before you joined, and then kind of what you did to sort of evolve it and take it to the next level.
I mean, it's a company that has really been founded with a great culture, and I think in some ways our customer base helps us have a great culture as well. So I felt really fortunate to join an amazing culture. When I first met the founder of the company, Daryl Benatar, and he was telling me about the culture, So I think one of the challenges is everybody describes their culture as being wonderful and nice. So it's sort of like one of those, it's like every platform says they're an integrated platform. It's like, yeah, but it doesn't really work with other stuff, right?
That's right.
So he's telling me,
yeah,
he's telling me how nice everybody is and how kind the culture is. But it's really true. I got into the company and was just blown away. And I think part of it is we sell a product that helps people understand and care about their users and their experiences. And so I think we sort of attract a certain amount of empathetic, high EQ, caring about other people type of personality, both in our customer base and in our company. And so I think we have a company of really caring, thoughtful people that care about everybody else's experience. And I tell people, like, when you go to our user conference, it's amazing. You've got all these people that, ask thoughtful questions and write down answers, and other people ask thoughtful questions.
Wow.
Okay, like, this is what it's like to have people that, are researchers or care about people's experiences. So I think we have a really great company culture that sort of reflects our customers in some way, which is kind of cool.
That's awesome. So what were did the company have articulated values before you joined? And then how did those values evolve as you?
Yeah, we actually have 5 core values. We have not changed those. I joined about 3 years ago. Our core values are get better, drive results, customers first, be kind, and keep it simple. And I think what we've done more is as we grow, as we add more people, more places around the world, more types of perspectives, as we sell to new kinds of buyers, how do those values continue to almost kind of grow as we do that? So what does it mean to be kind in a 20-person company is different than a 500-person company, right? What does it mean to drive results when you're just trying to find product market fit versus some of the biggest brands in the world are depending on you to do something? So, we sort of think of them as being great foundations to have conversations about how does the culture continue to kind of grow and improve and kind of fit the appropriate stage that we're at.
That's awesome. So you actually inherited a company that had a great culture and articulated values. Did you, I'm guessing you had to go through this many times and act on in other places in the past. Did you come in and sort of do a bit of an audit to just see where things were at and figure out sort of what needed to change? Or what was your approach in the early days?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's a mix of of listening, but also having urgency. It's part of the challenge of coming in as a leader, at any level in a company. You're trying to assess your team and the situation and where your customers are at, and sort of strike this balance of like, well, I'm here to do things. Like I wasn't hired to just have popcorn and watch everybody else do stuff. So, you're trying to make decisions, but ultimately, I felt like we weren't a broken business. It was just a business that we were thinking about, like, how do we continue to accelerate and grow? So you're sort of in looking for opportunity more than fixing things. And so, I try to strike a balance of listening and being thoughtful, but also being decisive and making decisions that I clearly communicate.
That's awesome. Well, I'm sure one of the biggest things you had to do was think about, the team, and then how that team grows and how you keep giving opportunity to them, in this market, the strange market where the broader world is really challenged, but tech is just crazy hot. How do you think about giving your team kind of career path and opportunity? I'm sure you have that conversation all the time. I do with our employees, right? And there's so many choices out there. Like, what's your approach to it?
I think part of it is, you want to be in a company that's growing and has opportunity. I think it is good advice when people talk about being on the right vessel is really important, right? A growing, expanding company creates a lot of opportunity.
Right.
And then I think it's about learning. I think, people that are learning and are interested and are finding great new things to do are having fun, right? And so having that curiosity, having things that people want to discover, I think is part of where you should take your career. I think trying to plot it out is really challenging. If people are like, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. It's like, well, but like, it doesn't work like that. I think that's, you got to find what's interesting in the moment and then think about how you're going to expand your horizons. I also tell people fixing things that are broken or getting into the hard and messy stuff is actually where all the fun is at. Like it might sound great. You're just like, oh, I'm on a team that's just knocking it out of the park. But like getting involved in the problems is where you really learn to make things happen in your career. And so I think that for me has been a area of advice I've given people regularly.
It's funny. I was just talking to my chief of staff about this today. Like when the times when you go through challenges together as a team really bond you more than anything else, and like really, it's weird. You go through hard stuff that feels crappy, but you leave more connected than ever. Right.
Well, and I think that's right. I also find that the people you invite to be part of the problem solving and you give them an honest view of how big the problem might be, are actually your biggest advocates once you come to a solution of solving it. It's one of the things I've learned in leadership. I've started to make the circle of people I work with on a problem much, much larger. I think there's a tendency in maybe earlier in leadership for folks to try to want to contain bad news or like, don't share this info or don't let people know we're having this problem. I find it's actually a lot easier if pretty quickly you start broadly telling lots of folks, so we got this challenge we got to get through and like, here's what we're doing. And if people see you logically thinking through the problem and being honest about what we're trying to go do, you get a lot of buy-in to go fix it. And so I think there's sort of this level of transparency to the hard stuff. To your point, Nick, really kind of bonds the team on going to solve it. And I think that's an important leadership lesson for folks to kind of learn how to make the problem a motivator and a bonding thing, not something to be afraid of.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were just talking about the other day about how it's just a lot of people naturally early in their career are hesitant to be transparent about challenging stuff. And so they just don't want to share it. And then it just, it hurts trust. It makes it, people don't feel like they're on the same team. And I don't know about you. I sometimes like force transparency. I'm like actually had a conversation the other day. I'm like, the person was like, I don't know if I want to share that with the whole company. I'm like, no, you're going to share it with the whole company. Go ahead and share it. I guarantee you it's going to make things better. And then they feel like it was better. So that's awesome. I really like the way you approach it. You talked about your team having fun too. And we had a pre-conversation here and I was super impressed. Actually, I'm definitely taking notes and copying you. You have we had to find how to make these virtual meetings with our company fun. And, obviously we used to do these company kickoffs and sales kickoffs and we go to some hotel and, get to go out to dinner and all this fun stuff. So talk about how you designed your sales kickoff, which I think happened just this past week, right? Yeah,
it was actually company-wide. So whole company kickoff.
Great.
The marketing team and the sales enablement team that took a big part of designing it, they're really thoughtful. They basically said, look, everybody's kind of, we're all a bit zoomed out. How are we going to keep people's attention and have it feel fun and have people feel energized, not drained at the end of it? Like another 8 hours of online meetings doesn't exactly make people feel like, yeah, like I'm all fired up. So we said, all right, like scrap the whole format. What would we do totally differently? And so we basically threw out most of the PowerPoint, Google Slides kind of approach to things and we themed the entire thing based on TV shows. So every like half hour was another different TV show theme, and we made them very interactive. So, for example, when we were rolling out the numbers for next year, we actually had our CFO hosted, a whole thing around who wants to crush their numbers. And we were polling the audience to like have them guess what the numbers were going to be. Amazing. We did a strategy theme around Family Feud, where again, people were being polled and asked questions. And so I just, finding ways to keep it fun and thinking about the big picture alignment. Did people leave feeling like, okay, like this is a company and a culture I want to be a part of, on a mission that I care about. And do I understand what the big things are, the big themes that we're trying to go do? Because the alignment's going to continue to have to happen, as we go through the coming weeks. But getting people fired up and focused on the big things, it just feels harder to just even be broadly aligned in all of this. We just don't have those natural connection points. And so was pretty, very impressed actually with the work the team put in to make it fun and engaging.
I'm super impressed. Like I said, I'm going to shamelessly copy for our upcoming kickoff. So benefit of going later. That wasn't too surprising of a story to me, because when I came to your all hands, one of the things that struck me was, you and I were doing some kind of a fireside chat. That was super fun. But your team had this awesome side chat using kind of the Zoom chat feature, right? And we try to do that, but you were doing it to the next level. I mean, there was a ton of stuff on there. Is that part of the culture as well, or is that just
It has become, it's interesting. I mean, we used to do all hands more in person. I mean, we're, global like most companies, but just to give you an example, actually during the kickoff, one of the things I did was put together a little video highlight reel of me screwing up during the all hands that we do all the time, like my bad presentation moments over the course of the year, which I'll have to send you. It's pretty bad.
I would love to see that. I'm sure.
Yeah, I run my own slides, and they shouldn't let me do that. I make a complete mess of it at least once in every all hands. But I was going through that, and it was interesting because I'm watching the videos, because I made the little video myself, and I get back to February last year, and all of a sudden it's not a Zoom meeting. It's like, well, we're like in person, like there's 100 people in the room, and it was almost like disorienting, right? But I say all that because when we shifted to online doing the all hands, when we moved to work from home like everybody else, it was sort of this big surprise that happened. Like we did the first all hands, and at the beginning of every all hands, we recognized promotions and anniversaries and things like that. And the chat just went bonkers. I mean, it was like, all of a sudden it was like, so we'd announce someone to get promotion, and 200 congratulations would go by and clappies. And it was this thing. And so I don't know if that's always been like a thing that would happen with our culture, but it's been something we've really embraced. And we've talked openly about the fact that when we get back at some point to being in the office, like, how do I replicate that during the all hands going forward? Because it's been great. It's kind of weirdly interactive for being a very large meeting. And I think it's been pretty cool.
It's so true. And there's probably a lot of things like that we want to kind of carry forward, from this challenging time into sort of the new world we'll be in. So yeah, I'm with you on that. We do chat a lot in meetings too now. And actually, after I saw your meeting, I was like, we're going to do it even more, because again, copying from you, because it just creates another level of inclusivity and energy and everything else. That's really, really cool. And I'm guessing you also, you brought me in as a guest. I'm guessing you probably used this time during the pandemic and virtual to bring in guests into the company as well.
We have. Yeah. I was just telling a board member earlier today. I mean, it's interesting because the ability for another executive or an outside person to hop into your meeting for 30 minutes, it's so much easier than like, hey, could you get on an airplane, fly out to my company? It's like, and so I've been really humbled in some ways, or surprised. I don't know what, but the people we've asked that we were like, boy, if we could just get this person to come talk to us, and then I send you a note, and you're like, yeah, like great, I'll be there. And it's like, wow, awesome. So we've really been trying to take advantage of that, and we've had a bunch of different folks come talk to the company, to the leadership team, and so I'd encourage people, ask. I mean, people are one Zoom click away from the most intimate way they can interact with your team now is Zoom, and it's easy for folks to do. So
that's great advice actually for people watching, because I totally agree with you. The hit rate, the take rate on those kinds of asks now versus before, I mean, it's 10x, right? It's so easy. I love that. So let's switch to kind of second chapter, which is, you run an amazing company, awesome culture. Obviously, your company exists in this larger society. Anything interesting that you've seen from your team about how you all interacted with the community around you over the crazy last 12 months of all these different things happening? Like, what's that been like?
I think it's a couple of things that were really interesting. One was, I do think, as a company, the employees did a great job kind of, I don't want to say doubling down on flexibility and adaptability, and that meant people supporting their neighbors, supporting their families, supporting what they had going on at home. And so that was pretty interesting to see people just really adjust what expectations were around normal and kind of into like high flexibility. And interestingly, it sort of corresponded with even better productivity, which was super unexpected, but you sort of like you give people some space to be able to manage things, and people really step up. And I thought that was really great. Not so much just a customer story, but I do think it was interesting that a lot of the companies that work with us use our product to understand customers and customer sentiment.
Yeah.
If you would imagine over the last year, like that was crazy. So there were some really cool stories, like the team at Nextdoor using our product to help ship that feature around helping neighbors, right? Neighbors helping neighbors and asking for help. Like they ran all that through on our platform. We saw companies during kind of the social awareness awakening we had around Black Lives Matter, doing things like not only testing their diversity and inclusion messaging and things, but some people were testing like, what should I put in a drop down if I want to track this kind of stuff better and let people share, like, how do I engage people? So I think that was really a great way for our employees to kind of have an impact on what was going on in the world, helping, so many different other ways that people engaged with technologies and brands in a way that wasn't just about commerce, but was actually about kind of making things better. That was really quite rewarding.
I love it. That's awesome. I really, especially that drop down example, because it is such a subtle thing. Like we don't know what is the way that's going to make people feel included around identifying gender or identifying race and stuff like that. I think you go to some forums on the web and they're kind of cringeworthy in the way that they've done it, So I think there's so much about the user experience that ties to kind of the human, which I know is a huge part of what you all do.
Probably not a good idea if you've got a bunch of middle-aged white dudes sitting around a conference room table Googling what things to put in the drop down. Maybe go out and talk to some folks in the community.
Well, ask people. I love that. That's awesome. The other thing that I think, you and I know each other, and we follow each other online, so you can kind of guess like where we stand probably personally on various issues politically, and I think we're probably similar. But then we have these companies, and obviously there's people in the company and people from lots of different sort of walks of life with different opinions. I'm sure you deal with the same thing. How did you all navigate like how much to talk about, politics or issues in society, and what's the line? I know every company had to figure out a line. Did any learnings around that?
I think for me, I really took a cue from Mark Benioff when I was working at Salesforce, because I feel like what Mark does a very good job of is orienting it in the standpoint of what's good for my employees, as opposed to just, what are my political beliefs in the world? Because Mark's has strong personal political beliefs. But there are things that really, from an employee standpoint, become clearer, right? If there's legislation changing in a place where I've got a large base of employees that I think is going to have a very negative impact on those employees, it's easier to come in with a spot. If it's about how do we have a workplace where everybody feels comfortable working here, right, and gets to bring their whole self to work and be treated well, that's different than me saying, here's Andy's opinion on the estate and wealth tax. Like that, that's not really a bring yourself to work kind of problem, right? Right. So I think there's a certain set of issues that are more purely political to me that are interesting things to talk about. I think there are really important debates to be had in our country around how do we want to manage the fact that, these massive businesses can grow with low marginal costs and low labor involvement. And like, it's an interesting economic problem that has political implications. That's very different than saying, what if there are discriminatory practices in a place where I've got 100 people located and it's going to impact them negatively and it's going to impact my ability to compete and get people to want to work there. I mean, we have offices where people move from other states to come take those jobs. If the state doesn't welcome those people, then I can't compete for great talent, right? So that to me is more of a grounding of like, it is in some ways a political issue, but it's also very clearly the right thing for the business. And I think a lot of times those things are pretty aligned if we just communicate them that way.
That's so well said. And you're totally right. I mean, I think, Mark Benioff has set this example in so many different ways, but I remember kind of standing up for his employees in Indiana and Georgia and stuff like that. And that was definitely pretty inspiring. And that was way before everyone else was doing it. So that's
and his point on Indiana was really clear. He's like, look, we recruit from all over the Midwest for people who have to work in Indiana. So if we pass legislation that makes this a place people aren't going to be willing to move to, I mean, it makes it hard to compete. So I think it's a really well-articulated strategy he's had, and I've tried to kind of use that to inform how I talk about things.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, I'll switch to the third chapter, which is the one I always have to talk about, which is customer success. And I think there's multiple lenses on this. First of all, you've been a multi-time SaaS CEO. Yeah, you've done a great job of sort of caring about the customer and kind of embodying it in your business. But then your business itself, in a different way, is about driving great experiences for your customers. So love to hear your philosophy on customer success.
Yeah, I mean, our whole mission is to sort of close this thing that we refer to as the empathy gap. Mm-hmm. And it's this idea that there are all these surveys. One of my favorite is a Capgemini survey where they say 75% of people who work at companies believe their company delivers a great customer experience. And when you go survey people about those same brands, only 30% of people say they actually get a good experience.
Right.
So you only have one of two takes here. You can either take a very negative worldview, which is these people don't actually care about creating good experiences. They're, bad people that are, don't care. Or you can say the people creating these experiences are not able to put themselves into the shoes or have the perspective of the people that are giving this feedback, right? That they think they're creating a great experience. They're just not. They lack that kind of empathy or understanding. And so our whole mission is to kind of close that gap by letting people see and hear and feel what their customers experience when they're using their products. And I actually think this is becoming a lot more important as more things are digitized, as we go through digital transformation. We don't actually talk to customers as much anymore in person, right? I mean, the bank down the street from me literally drywalled over where the tellers used to be. There's nobody in there anymore, right? I mean, you don't even talk to the barista at Starbucks anymore. You just mobile order. So how do we build understanding and empathy with the companies and the people that we work with? That's kind of the mission that we're on. And so I think that really all goes back to this core mandate of what is customer success? Customer success is understanding and empathizing with the people that I'm delivering a product or service to, and not only meeting, but then exceeding the needs, right? What their expectations are. And so I think that's a big focus area for our company. So that's kind of what we're trying to help the brands we work with, the companies. For us, we're a B2B software provider. So if we're going to walk that walk, it means we need to be listening to what they're doing and engaging with them. And, we call that motion customer success in the SaaS world. And so we're very, very engaged on our customer success motion because it's how we kind of walk the walk for what it is that we're out talking to people about doing.
That's awesome. And now you've done this multiple times. You were at Salesforce, which kind of created the whole customer success concept. And then you were Acton and now at UserTesting. What's something that you feel like has evolved in your thinking about how to do it? Once you buy into the concept, what have you learned about how to do it that's different now versus before?
I think a couple of things. One is, I went from Oracle to Salesforce in my career, which was my first step into SaaS. And I always tell people it was interesting because at the time, Salesforce was full not only of the same kind of people, but often the same people that used to work at Oracle, right? And talking about companies that had different brands at that time around caring about customer success, although I think Oracle's made up some ground on that. But what I felt like was the SaaS business model sort of just changed that. It was like what made us successful was having successful customers. It was really amazing just seeing that align. So the first thing for me was really just this realization of having a business model that actually financially incents honest customer success is really important. And so that has framed not only my view of SaaS, but things like pricing models, service delivery. I really want to be aligned with customer outcomes because even the best people, if you misalign the outcomes, it's a lot harder to kind of do the right thing. And so aligned incentives is really important. And I think the other one that I've started to spend a lot more time on is, there are certain products that sort of get bought a department at a time and they just kind of get dropped in. More and more, we're seeing products that are bought not at a department level, but more on the front lines, and then they sort of spread and grow.
Yes, right.
And I think it really shifted my mindset. Salesforce, when I was there, was really very much a gross retention. You kind of bought it for your sales team, your sales team grew, and so that was the measure. It made sense. But I think the whole net expansion model is really just becoming so much more important. As so many of us have products now that land smaller, but then expand much bigger.
Yeah, it's so true. I think it's funny. We were just getting ready to blog post about that. The net retention, net expansion is the future of this whole area. So I love it. Let me close out with some quick word associations. I'll just say a few words and you just say first thing that comes to mind. So let's say 2020.
Empathy.
Empathy. That's great. I do think we all gained that. Digital transformation.
I was going to say pandemic. I feel like it was like what pushed us forward. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I think so. Customer success.
Focus.
Focus. And then human first.
I want to say empathy again, but I don't want to say that twice.
I
really think it is. It is about people and humanity, and I think that's the thing that we're all struggling with the digital transformation. We just don't necessarily see our customers anymore, and I think figuring out the right ways to understand who we're working with is so important.
Well, that's awesome. I hope everyone else took notes. I took notes today. I learned a lot. Really excited about the learnings here. Andy, so good to see you as always. Hopefully we get to hang out sometime soon and not on the Zoom, but actually in person, and look forward to getting together. And thanks to everyone for watching. Really appreciate you joining this series. Look forward to seeing you soon.
It was great. Thanks for having me, Nick. Had a lot of fun.
Thanks. Bye.